hey, we've done it for these brands, we can really do it for anybody else. And we got our first like real client in the golf space because of our experience, not only with the digital space, but specifically in the golf space as well.
Yeah.
And we've seen
figured we'd start the chat out by a pretty cool experience that Wedge got to go to in the form of Dane and his wife, but the Topgolf event in LA.
Awesome event. I'll tell you, if we, obviously we run our tournament and our stuff, but I think it was a really cool thing if ever one day we got to run an event with the kind of size or budget as this Topgolf event was. But it was an incredible event. For context, Topgolf this last week released their Sure Thing driver, the Sure Thing club. It's about the craziest golf club you'll ever see. It's got 20 degrees of loft, with the intention of helping golfers who aren't into the game, new people coming into the game, to have a club that they can hit easier. And so part of the reason that my wife and I got invited was we have a close relationship with Connor Smith out there at Topgolf, the director of marketing. Awesome guy, and he was nice enough to invite us out. Not just myself, but also my wife as someone who doesn't play golf to prove the successfulness of the club.
Of the new club.
It was a cool event. Kind of a few of the things that stood out to me was one, the list of people they were able to get out to that event was pretty incredible. It's a lot of the influencers that you see every day in golf, all out in LA for this event, kind of hitting the club and having a good time. But it was also, if 10, 15 years ago you would have said, hey, here's a big event in golf, I don't think people would have associated that with rap artists on stage, skaters, streetwear companies like Malbin or, the number 33, those kind of groups, like all being involved, food trucks. Like it was kind of the culmination in my mind of what new golf looks like. Being in the space, which I think was really fitting for what they were trying to talk about. A big,
loud party filled with a bunch of non-golfers.
100%.
For one of the biggest golf launch events of the year.
It was really funny because they, there was, I think they told me 1,200 people at this event. So really, really good event, lots of people, and they were all kind of packed into this bottom floor in the bays. But they had a section off at the very, very far right that was like the uber VIP section. Like you had to be, who knows who you had to be to go over this section. But those were the only bays that were quiet. So we just kind of walked over there and we were like, hey, who are these for? And the lady goes, oh, well, they would have told you if you could use these. And we just went, oh, yeah, no, they told us. And just walked over. And so we got kind of our own little private bay and they were bringing drinks and all this kind of stuff. So it was a fun experience that way. But overall, couldn't say thanks enough to the team over out there. And if you're ever around your local Topgolf, go try the club. It's what I was telling you guys earlier is it's probably designed to help people get from a 0 to a 5, but not quite from a 6 to a 10 on the skill level or whatever. We were with another golf influencer and the golf content creator, Joshua Mayer, talking with him about we made a video trying to see if we could hit the club 200 yards. Just because with that much loft and that much...
And those balls that they use there.
The balls are not made to
go super far. Yeah.
But we found out the solution is if you want to hit it far, you got to go off the deck. That'll help a little bit.
Well, the little inside information for
Insider info.
Which all beginner golfers are obviously...
Yeah. You're going to want to hit that thing off the deck.
Drive off the deck.
So, but yeah, go ahead, head over to your local Topgolf, tee it up, let it fly. It's a fun little experience.
What was like the most surprising thing that you saw there?
The most surprising thing?
You weren't expecting, whether it be a person or an activation. What got you the most?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll be honest, it was the drone show. Yeah. They had this like probably 15 to 20 minute drone show. I think we tried to count them at the end. It was something like 600 drones up in the air. Really cool part of the activation. Oh, I'll also say this. One of the cool things, and we've talked about event management on the podcast before, they had a group out there. I apologize for not remembering the name of the group that was handling a lot of this, but they had a lot of the activations were set up for interaction. So, for example, one of the things that, and we'll post a video on our Instagram, that they had was you could walk up to one of the bays and they had a robotic arm that would set up directly behind the club. Then it would robotically move across to kind of head on to the ball, and then it quickly zooms up to show all of you, and you swing while it's happening, and it kind of slow-mos your swing, and it's this like robotic thing that does the shame shot every time. But it was a really cool thing because you walked up, you gave them your phone number, and within 20 minutes that was texted to your phone, and you could post it out. And so it was a really cool part of the activation where it was like, they didn't just think through how do I have a good time, how do I have good fun, but it was also how do I get to take things from the event and memories and pictures and obviously things to post and improve the engagement. But yeah, like they thought through all of that kind of parts of the event.
I think it's like wise to find ways if you're going to have that many people at an event to like,
well, especially that caliber of people.
Yeah, use them as a marketing tool too, and give them cool, whether content that they can post on their side, like only helps your brand too.
In a way that feels natural to what the event and the product was. It didn't feel weird for me to walk up and be like, oh, now I got to do this photo shoot or whatever. It was like, no, here's a cool video that like I'm excited to have, and I get to show going forward. And that added on to when you first showed up, there was a wall with the Topgolf logo and the Sure Thing Club logo and professional photographers, and those were within 5 minutes texted to you as well. And they had wristbands that you wore that joined and lit up at the same time as the drone show. And so like thinking through, we always talk about them as like touch points. Mm-hmm. What are the touch points that everyone's going to touch throughout the event, and how do you elevate each of those?
Well, I think it goes to a point that we may or may not have chatted about before, but like sometimes experience is more powerful than the dollar, in the sense that like how else would you get a room full of those types of people? A lot of influencers normally have to pay for them to post on their feeds or pay for them to, shout out your product. Where there, because the experience is so unique and so individual to them, and also so cool, you're getting all that for free where you'd otherwise have to pay for it. And I think that's kind of a cool concept and thing that a lot of events need to think a little bit more about.
Totally. Whether it's, an event that large, or it's a small golf tournament like ours, or it's, whatever it might be, it's how do you create an environment in a way that, I think we talked about this on our podcast when we recapped our tournament, was what provides value to your group that you're going to be getting there, and how do you do that in a way that they feel that value and they want to share that value with others. So no, it was awesome. Like again, couldn't recommend it enough. And hopefully we take some learnings on our own, and hopefully we get to go to the next one. Nice. I think with that being said, we can probably jump into our interview for today. Caden, who do we got on the docket?
So we've got a hometown hero, just a buddy of ours, also from Utah, incredible marketer, incredible entrepreneur, and honestly just an incredible all-around guy. But it's Trevor Crump. He is one of the co-founders of Bestie Agency, which is a digital marketing agency, and he's also working on a digital growth software platform. So we'll chat with him a little bit about those two things, and then he's obviously dipped his toes in the golf world too, so we'll
pretty deep
go through there. So
awesome.
Welcome back to another episode of the Wedgies podcast. Today we are super excited to have one of our good friends here on the pod. We refer to him as the god of digital, but he's entrepreneur, business owner,
always called it that.
Good friend of ours, good golfer as well. But we got Trevor Crump on the pod. Trevor, thanks for being on here, man.
Thanks for having me.
How's your day been going so far?
It's great. Hanging out in the little studio here. I like it.
Not too shabby.
We once in a while do a few pod episodes here in the Bay and hit afters.
Yeah.
Shout out Scratch Golf Lab for letting us into the spot.
It's good. It's like unique. You don't see too many podcasts that are in the, why can't I think what this place is called?
Golf
Simulator.
Simulator?
The Simulator,
Yeah.
I'm like, can't get the word out. I like it.
Like I said, thanks for being here again. We've been super excited to chat with you. I know we've been connected for a little bit now. Yeah. We've had 1 or 2 rounds of golf out on the course, and really we wanted to talk about just your background, first of all. Maybe walk us and walk our viewers through a little bit about where you've been and how you've gotten to where you're at, and we'll go from there.
So I've been in the e-commerce space for the last, like 7, 8 years, you know. It'll probably be 8 years, I think, in like November. I got my first little taste in e-com. I mean, I've been in marketing for like 12, 13 years. Started on the software side, but like my true love for marketing kind of fell in this e-com space. I had a really cool opportunity with a buddy of mine back in 2016 to start a company locally here called Asher Golf, which was interesting at the time because, you know, we actually didn't start Asher Golf. Like Asher Golf was an existing brand that had been around for years prior, but the company had kind of essentially gone under, got sold off to a VC, and then like somebody bought it, got connected with my buddy who worked for the VC that it sold off to, was like, hey, can you run this for me if I buy it? And, you know, we go in on it together. And he's like, sure. And then he brought me into that loop. So him and I launched the entire thing together. It was the two of us for, I don't know, probably the first, for sure for the first like 12 months before we hired anybody. But yeah, I was working for a company here in Salt Lake called Alliance Health, which is like a really, I'm not sure what, like if you have a Utah-based listener, like Alliance Health is a very famous company because they had a massive FBI raid.
Nice.
And I was over all of marketing when this happened, and I had a marketing budget of like, you know, like $3 million a month that I was spending.
That's incredible.
When the FBI raid happened, it put us into Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which essentially means like, hey, Chapter 11 bankruptcy, the government protects all employees, so nobody can get fired. Priority number 1 paycheck is to get employee paycheck, and then priority number 2 is to pay your vendors and your debtors.
Interesting.
But you can't spend money as a company anymore. So I'm like in charge of all these people. You know, we had a team of like, you know, 30 people. First, before we filed Chapter 11, I think like 15 of them got laid off just because we didn't have any money, and because the bank seized all of our funds. So anyways, I'm telling you, there's a point why I'm talking about this. The reason why this is cool is because as this was happening, I essentially like wasn't doing anything at work. Like I
had no money to spend.
I couldn't really do much because my side was not the creative side. My side was all performance-based lead gen, you know? And so my CMO at the time, he was like, don't leave. He's like, don't leave. I need you here. We're going to get through this. Stick around. And this was at the time when this guy had reached out to my buddy about Asher. And then my buddy's like, you know, he had really, really good background in finance, manufacturing, operations, like really, really dialed in that world. And he had come from consulting professionally. So really smart dude, but not as much experience on the marketing side, you know? And so he's like, dude, why don't you come do this with me? Like, come join this. Let's build this company. Let's rebrand Asher Golf. And so I was able to like work on Asher while I was getting paid for this other company. So for the first like 8 months, I'm like putting in the time at the job that I have to be at, but I'm getting paid to pretty much do Asher stuff. And my boss was cool with it because he's like, hey, you're like keeping your skills like in marketing. So I'm cool with that. So that's how I got my start in e-com. And then from there, I've since started a couple other e-commerce businesses, and then started a consulting agency where we consult and work for help e-commerce brands grow and scale.
So a question I've got for you on the Asher side, you know, you kind of mentioned the history there, you know, and obviously, you know, being local here in Utah, but also seeing Asher's national rise and what you guys were able to build there. You know, it had undergone this history that was, you know, somebody had built it and then sold it, and then it got sold again. And it was like, at that point, you're even getting sloppy seconds. Like you're on 3rd or 4th at this point.
Yeah.
When it came to you, what was it about the opportunity that was exciting? Was it building a company? Was it something within Asher and the product? What was driving you to being like, no, that's something I want to be involved in?
No, I mean, it wasn't the product, because actually at the time the product was, and a lot of people will say this, the brand was kind of, I did not like the branding. The branding had this like star that almost looked like, what do people call it? It's like like an Antichrist star or something like that.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
like not the Antichrist. What is it?
That's heavy. Pentagram?
The pentagram. Yeah,
Pentagram.
Yeah, like it looked like a pentagram, and And the branding was, I mean, it was cool for when it was started, I think. And it was very much to the like weekend warrior, like rock star golfer, you know? Like I remember, who was it? Who's the lead singer of Kiss? They're not the lead singer of Kiss. Who's the guy who sings School's Out for Summer? School.
You're asking the wrong crowd here.
We got our fact checker right
Fact
here.
checker.
Yeah, we got our fact checker.
We're going to the laptop.
Alice Cooper. No,
There
sorry, not
we
Kiss.
go.
Yeah, Alice Cooper would wear our death grip glove, like as a golf glove on stage. You know? Yeah.
Oh,
So-
on stage, not even golfing.
Yeah.
That-
Wait, that's a pretty cool like product placement right there.
Yeah. So before that was something that the old founder and team had done.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with that. So the product itself, I think what was most interesting to me was, it was just something in the golf industry. It was like, hey, you have the chance to be an owner in a company in the golf space. Like that could be really, really cool. And the fact that it was a proven. There had been revenue, so people like there was a market to it. That was also like really cool because I'm like massive. I'm a massive risk taker now. Back then I was not at all, and so it felt less risky as well.
So with that being said, saying you weren't a risk taker, do you think you would have taken this risk had it not been for your current employer getting FBI rated and all that kind of stuff? Like, did that help give you that little bit of a push to say, I might need to go find something?
Maybe. I mean, because I still was working at the company. I
still had a paycheck.
Yeah, but I would have had I been working somewhere else, I would have still had to put the same amount of hours. Like I was still going in 9 to 5 at this place. Yes, some of my 9 to 5 time I was like hopping on, doing some Asher stuff, making phone calls, whatever. But I still think I totally would have, because the majority of the work that I put in, because Matt, my buddy, he was consulting, and he was working for, I cannot remember, but it was one of the big like 5 consulting firms. So he would travel Monday through Thursday.
Oh, interesting.
So he was gone a ton. So like when we'd work at like, he'd, clock out and we'd be on the phone and we'd work from like 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. every single day, together. So we still were working in the after hours that had nothing to do with, the 9 to 5
totally
time.
I'm curious. Obviously, the first version of Asher and the existing version of Asher is quite different. Mm-hmm. What, in your opinion or from your side, what was like the insight that drove the change in the brand and the philosophy and the messaging to what it is now?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to maybe the early stages of the change of the brand, which the antithesis of what the brand is today comes from those early stages. Yeah. I think that one, we just knew that the branding was very outdated.
Needed to change.
And there's branding is a pretty ambiguous thing nowadays. Like you can talk about the look and feel and logo, you can talk about the messaging, you can talk about who the customer is, you can talk about the materials in which you use to elevate a brand. There's all sorts of things, and a lot of those have progressed since I haven't been with, the company. But in the beginning stages, we just needed something that was going to be a little bit more, like a little bit more simple, a little bit less messy, and something that we wanted to be a little more elevated, because the brand at the time was meant for everyone, and we wanted to be just a little bit higher end.
Yeah.
A little bit elevation. And so it was actually a really easy transition. I think Matt redesigned the logo. Like it was really, really simple on how we did it. And I think a lot of brands, and he has since done a ton to really, really elevate it. And he's made it a very elevated brand that hits a customer who wants very nice, high quality products, which all of it is. But yeah, that's kind of how we started it, was just knowing that we needed to make a change to make it cleaner and to elevate it a little bit. And that really started out with just more simple designs, less harsh colors, little things like that. So it was very basic stuff, but like really made a massive, massive difference, I think.
No, it makes sense. And I mean, yeah, for those that are aware of the Asher brand, it's obviously a growing national brand, but from what you explained, the first version of the company, it is quite different now, and definitely on that path that you talked about. I wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk about now your venture in the agency and the agency life. What led you from all these experiences you've had to now being a founder of an agency and also a software company?
Yeah, I mean, really a lot of like, I had a buddy of mine so we'd launched Asher and we saw some really early success both on the D2C side of things and in like the B2B side of things. And a buddy of mine was launching another golf company. Him and his friend were launching another golf company. He was just like picking my brain one day about things that I was doing. And he was like, dude, he's like, everything. He's like, I know I need this, but like everything you're also saying is like stuff my wife's brand needs. And she was running a multi-million-dollar like bag company, women's bag company. And he's like, you should talk to her about this kind of stuff. And so really like my experience with Asher and some of the like early wins that we were having, because it might sound crazy, but like Facebook advertising was like still, you're gonna probably get people who are gonna, if someone clips this like clip right here, they're gonna be like, this guy's stupid, but like Facebook advertising's been around for a minute, but it like really started to like, brands really started to like look at the potential in like 2015, 2016. And that was like right when Asher was like, we were doing some stuff and having some like really cool wins with Facebook advertising. And so it was like the knowledge I gained was stuff that like a lot of brands just didn't have at the time because we had not yet hit what's known as the pay-to-play model in Facebook, which was pre-algorithm. You posted something, any brand that posted something made sales. Like you literally would post something and then we'd go look at our Shopify account and we just watch sales happen, that's just how life used to be. And then it was like spring of 2018 where the algorithm was introduced that Meta or Facebook back then was like, hey, why are all these influencers making so much money and we're not? Hey, why are all these brands making so much money by posting and we're not? Let's start to, take away some of that organic distribution and reward the people who are spending money with us. And we were like really on the early stages of that at Asher. And so I had just gotten to like, I'd gotten these little trades by luck of timing. And so, I ended up almost, while I was doing Asher stuff, almost started consulting for these people, but then they wanted me to come on at a bigger, like more full-time partnership role. So I did that and Asher at the same time. And then just started realizing like, hey, I either need to be a full-time Asher on the brand side of things or on this other brand, but I also have this knack for consulting. And I had brought on he wasn't my business partner at the time, but he was working for me, who's now my current business partner. Like we just like connected so well on how to help brands that we just decided to kind of like, hey, we've done it for these brands, we can really do it for anybody else. And we got our first like real client in the golf space because of our experience, not only with the digital space, but specifically in the golf space as well. Yeah. And we've since had quite a few golf brands that have worked with us just because we understand the industry and we love it,
So an interesting thing, and obviously this is a big part of what we do at Wedge and, being involved within the golf industry specifically. And this is something I think a lot of our clients realize when we talk to, friends of ours that run marketing agencies or stuff. A lot of people like wonder, why do you need to be golf specific? Why does it matter that you're in the golf industry? Why does it matter that, a company like Wedge or even like yourself as a consultant would say like, oh no, I have golf experience? What do you think that looks like? How would you frame the benefit of having golf expertise?
I mean, the broader question is just like, why do you niche down in anything, right? Like being a golf specific agency, consultant, whatever, is just niching down. And one, it's important for the agency who's doing it because you go from talking to the ocean to a lake, or maybe even a pond, depending on how big that is. But then to the brand, the golf brand that might be hiring you, you know that 100% of the work that this person is doing is 100% into the industry that you're in, versus like, now my agency, we are not golf specific,
right?
You know, however we work, you know, I could probably tier out 3 different, you know, types of brands, and golf would be one of them that we work with. So like, we kind of have a niche of it just because, but that's mostly because we love it. You know, like when I say we, like I love it. At least I love to golf. But that's really helpful. Like anytime we talk to somebody and we're like, oh yeah, hey, we work with brand XYZ, they're like, oh, I would much rather hire you than somebody who's been working with, let's just say like, and no knock against them, baby brands only.
Yeah.
You know, or something like that. Like,
well, and I kind of want to build on that because like, obviously, yeah, that helps the customer trust you because they feel like you know their industry.
Right.
But I kind of would like to pick your brain like on a deeper level, like when you're going through digital, you're going through all these different steps. Where do you see, okay, we've worked with other golf companies. What is that kind of through line that you're seeing amongst your golf clients, if there is any?
Well, there's different trends that you can recognize within the golf space, right? So we recognize that even though golf can be year round in you know, for example, Arizona, you're playing golf year round in Arizona, you're playing golf year round in Florida, in Utah, you're playing golf 7-8 months of the year, right? There are quarters and stages where things are better than other times, right? So for example, like mid Q1 becomes awesome for golf brands in the e-commerce space, okay? All the way through Q2 until the last month of Q2, usually. Or sorry. Like oftentimes last month of Q2 starts to get a little like hairy. And then like Q3 can be really, really well besides, hold on, Q3 can work really, really good. Q4 is awesome except for October. Like there's these like different times that you start to recognize. And so for example, with brands like right now that we're working with, it's like, I can go back and look at all this historical data and I can say, hey, not all advertising dollars are equal, dependent upon the time of month. And this goes for every brand, right? You can do this with any industry, by the way, but in the golf industry, very specific, you know? So like usually people start, you know, let's take a golf bag brand, for example. Most people have made their golf bag purchases before like July. It's the same thing with the swimwear world. Like in the swimwear world, you would think that July is a hot month to sell swimming suits. It's not. Like it dies down in June because most moms are proactively buying their kids their swimming suits February, March, April. Exactly, right? And it's the same thing. It's like, I've been golfing since March, you know, so I want to buy my golf bag in March, not in June, July. Not to say that you're not selling golf bags, you still are, but that dollar is different.
Yeah.
So when do I want to spend that? Do I want to double down my spend in March, April, May? And then maybe decrease my spend these months? You know, so the little things like that are super, super helpful.
Well, and part of the reason I wanted to push you on that, and I really love your answer there, was it was not just to get your insight, but also like that's the same message that we preach when we're on sales calls, when we're talking to potential clients is, you know, where you might be more in the digital world and more on that kind of, hey, let's look at the trends of how we're going to do spend and those kind of things.
Sure.
It's the same kind of conversation we have when we're talking about content creation.
Yeah.
We recently were doing a big branding pitch for a golf company, and we were talking about like golf is similar to like skating, for example, where like skaters speak a language. Golfers speak a very specific language.
For sure.
And it's, you know, it's the same thing where if I show up to a skate park, everyone in that skate park would immediately, before I'd even put my board on the ground, be able to know whether or not I belonged in that setting or not.
For sure.
It's the same thing with golfers.
Yeah.
When you get to a tee box, before you've even hit the ball, every golfer can tell you whether or not you are or are not, whether how you speak, dress, look. And so if that translates into your messaging, into your content creation, and even into your strategies as an advertiser, like that's where that gap can be between somebody who knows not only how to market, but how to market to that audience and
For
speak
sure.
that audience language in a way that you're not going to find in a Google search or in
Totally.
something like that.
Totally. Yeah. 100%.
I wanted to talk a little bit less about the digital space and more just about golf trends in general. You know, the many times we've connected, we always talk about, you know, the pants we're wearing or the shirts we're wearing or the hats that are out. What are some of the just style trends that you're seeing these days that you're liking or that you're not liking in the golf space?
I'm loving the trend, like the more casual trend that's happening in golf. You know, I love golf tradition, but I also think it's like super uptight. And that's been happening for a while. Like that was part of why we launched Asher. Like Asher are the brand we looked at the most. It's going to sound funny now because they're not like that big. I mean, they're still big, but they're not as like coveted as they used to. It wasn't even a golf brand that we looked to. It was Stance.
Oh, yeah.
We looked at Stance because we wanted to be the colored glove the same way that Stance was creating colored socks. And we felt like there was this market there. So everything we did, we emulated what Jeff Curl was doing over there, you know? And so I love the relaxed, like you're wearing a t-shirt, maybe not a golf polo. I love the like kind of basketball-y, it's like basketball meets street wear that's happening in golf. That's really, really cool. I just think it opens up a new realm, right? You start to appeal to, because I think a lot of people like the idea of golf, but then when you add the language, when you add the dress code, when you add just the uppityness of it, it turns a lot of people off from the game. And so that's why I love this casual, this casual world that we're starting to see in the golf space. It's making it.
When we talk about style and stuff within there, it's really interesting because I think the through line with everything that you just mentioned and what we've seen, even not with like brands that we might wear, but brands that we're seeing popping up, whether it's in the female sector or whether it's minority groups that want to get involved in the game, is it's different people finding new ways to express themselves within golf.
For sure.
So it's not just, oh, hey, here's streetwear. Streetwear is a group of people that play golf that in the old uppity version had no way to express themselves.
Right.
And I, recently was able to go like to this Topgolf event this last week in LA where it was like, you didn't see one polo in the group. It was they had a rapper on stage. They had all this kind of stuff, and they're celebrating a golf club that Topgolf had made that's meant to get more people into golf that anybody can hit. And I think the through line of what I've been seeing since COVID started, and I'm sure we've all seen it as well, is just the idea that like we're trying to allow more people. Growing the game doesn't just mean more people playing. It means more people using the game as a form of expression.
Yeah.
And that's where, like where you're seeing it and all this kind of stuff, where it's like, you got these pants you were telling us about before the podcast, where it's like, I'm going to wear these on the course because they're comfy and they're fun. And that's what I like to wear.
Yeah. The barrier of entry is so much lower. I mean, any golfer, like you talk to like my dad, for example, who's like 60 years old, he would say, oh, it's always been like anyone could always play, and it's true. Yeah. Right. It's totally true. But the barrier of entry, just based off of how you can look, has been lowered significantly. And I think that's helping the game out for sure. I also hate it at the same time because
especially here in Utah. Yeah. Like I talk to friends and stuff that are outside, and it's not as big of an issue, but like you can never book a tee time day of anymore. It has to be a couple days in advance, and if you want like the prime spots, full 18, you got to actually
like 7 days in advance. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to a buddy today that says it's actually motivated us to be more successful in our lives, because the only people I know that can get like day of tee times are buddies of mine that have country club memberships.
Yeah, if you're a country
and so
club
I'm like,
member,
oh, I got to go work harder to go try and make more money to go get a country club membership, because then maybe I could be a part of this group that actually gets to play golf when they want.
I know, dude. It's crazy. It's awesome, but it sucks, right?
Yeah.
I had another question for you. Obviously, if anybody follows you on LinkedIn specifically or on Instagram, you've been doing a lot more personal branding content, which I wanted to dive in because I admire your schedule. I admire how early you get up, all the things you're able to accomplish before your kids get out of bed, and then the tenacity and determination that you attack the day with. And you're doing this all pretty much in front of the camera now.
Sure.
What has that process been like for you to incorporate that into your life, but also see like the need for it?
Yeah, I mean, the process is always hard because it's time, and it's not just time; it's uncomfortable time.
Oh yeah.
You know, like it doesn't matter. I've always like described myself as like I'm super extroverted, but I hate it when all attention is on me. Like I would hate I love to be in front of people. I love talking to people. I could speak in front of a crowd of 400 people, but if you throw a birthday party for me, I'm like way uncomfortable with that. I do not want that, you know. But I'd love to throw a birthday party for my wife, you know, or something like that. So
interesting.
So like I have a love-hate relationship with the camera. I mean, I saw early on in 2018, I had an inside track into the brand one of the brands that I was working with, that they were spending insane amounts of money on content. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on photo shoots a year. And I saw that our engagement was dramatically decreasing. I saw that we would, like I said, we'd spend $50,000 on a photo shoot and we'd use 30 images. And those 30 images would maybe get a distribution from an impression perspective of 10,000 people. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, there's no way the ROI is mathing for this. And then I would see our founder, and she would go on, and she'd be like, hey guys, guess how many pairs of Vans shoes I have? And it'd be the most engaged thing we ever got. And had nothing to do with the product or anything. And so I saw early on in 2017, 2018, like the consumer from a social media perspective wants a little bit more of a human interaction and not this. There was a point in time where attainment was like huge, you know, like take a picture in front of me swinging a golf club in front of a castle and it's going to get the most engagement you'll ever get. But now if you do that, it's probably not going to get anything because people have done that 1,000 times and it's not relatable or whatever. And so, I just noticed that at a really early kind of time, you know, that was like TikTok was around. It still might have been music. Was it Musical.ly? What was it before?
Something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, but no, I think in 2018 it was TikTok, and that like TikTok was becoming something. I feel like 2020 is when TikTok really took off. But yeah, I saw that, and so I thought, hey, if I go full time, and I'm not getting paid by, you know, from like a W-2 perspective, we need to find a way to drive eyeballs to what we're doing. And me creating a personal brand seems like a really great opportunity for that. Like, you know, I'm not going to have the advertising dollars to do it, or at least I don't want to start that way. And so it was really just like hey, I noticed that this is working. What if I did that? And it's worked really well. I mean, it's what's driven maybe, you know, probably 50 to 70% of our business comes from yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, because then what happens is maybe I get one client from that, but then they get me two more. So it's like, okay, it was a referral from them that started from me, you know, so like I could back into probably 80% of the business comes from that at some point, you know.
That's incredible.
So it's huge.
And yeah, actually, I'm glad Caden brought this up because it was something I wanted to bring up as well. And I know one of the posts of yours that really stuck out to me was when you mentioned that when you started doing this, correct me if I'm wrong telling the story, you blocked everyone you knew on social media so they would not see your content.
Yeah, I was just, that was just because I was nervous, you know.
Tell us that story. I would love to kind of go through that.
Yeah, I mean, I was just nervous. Like I said, I had this, you know, I've got a group of buddies who we're all in a DM chat.
Dangerous place.
In Instagram where we send each other inappropriate memes and we make fun of things and we, you know, it's just like kind of like I'm 36, but I'm transported back to maybe 17 in that DM. And I had this like massive fear of my buddies creating another DM without me and like putting my content in there. That's really what stirred
That'd
it,
be ruthless.
Which happened.
Yeah. And I would do it, to be honest with you. Like, I probably would have done it to one of my buddies if they did it, So, and they probably do it today. But I was just nervous. So I just said, okay, what if I just block all my buddies? And so I like blocked all my buddies. I was like, okay, cool. I feel better about that. I'm like, but if my mom were to see something, she's going to go brag about it because she's my number one fan. So let me block her. And I might as well block my dad because if my dad sees it, he'll show my mom. And if my grandma sees it, she'll show my mom. And so it just became this thing where I just said, okay, let me take like a full day and just think of anyone I can think of. And I literally just searched every single person I could think of, block. I blocked managers, people I worked with. I mean, I blocked anyone I could think of, yeah. And it almost gave me like the permission to be like, okay, cool. I care way too much about what the people I know, what they think about me, but I don't care about what Chris in Ohio thinks.
Isn't that crazy though? Because that type of content is supposed to be like 100% authentic. This is me, and this is who I am. Yet, I think it's a pretty universal feeling that like, we have fear of these people that are around us that we simultaneously are the most authentic around. Sure. Which, that's a weird paradox. Yeah, and so when you tell that story, I think about it as if I was going to do it, and I'm like, I would have that same thought without a doubt.
I would do it again. Like, and like a lot of people I'll tell that story and they'll be like, oh dude, be yourself. And it's like, hey, if you can do that, awesome. But I just couldn't, and even still to this day, dude, I hate it when people talk about it. Like anytime my mom talks about it or, cause now I've unblocked everybody since then just because eventually
cats had the bag.
Yeah. Eventually a post breaks through and I had some like wildly viral posts that got millions of views that eventually like I'm getting people like from 5th grade who's like, is this the Trevor Crump that had Mrs. Schultz's class with me? And I'm like, who is this, And, I start to get that. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's like, oh, I forgot my great aunt. I forgot to block her. And she just sent this to my mom. And now my mom's wondering why she can't see this.
Was that a fun one to explain?
So yeah. No. But yeah, so, but you're right, dude. Like but also with that said, I will say this, like, unfortunately, even though like, I might say, hey, so-and-so's my best friend, or hey, so-and-so's my sister, or hey, so-and-so's my brother. Like, it is funny how unwilling we are to support those people. It's very interesting, like, not that I would ever expect any of my friends to support me. I'd probably say half of them don't. Not that they're unsupportive about it, like they're out, but like, they're not like hyping me up there, and
it's a universal thing. Yeah. I like legitimately last night was listening to an interview that was on Pardon My Take, the Barstool podcast.
Sure, yeah.
And when they're doing that, they were saying that they hate it when people are like, "What do you do?" and they say, "Oh, I'm a podcaster."
Yeah.
And it was like, those guys make millions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
Doing these podcasts.
Yeah.
And they feel ashamed to say they're a podcaster.
It's interesting.
Then in that they go, well, at least we're not saying influencer.
Sure, yeah.
And it's like, it's so funny because these are careers.
Yeah.
Legitimate businesses, legitimate careers people are having, but there's some level of bias or of fear in being like, that's what you are, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because of stigma or whatever it might be. It's such an interesting kind of dynamic.
It is.
I do have a question based off of that, though, and kind of what you were mentioning before is you were talking about kind of when you saw this type of content blowing up versus here's a very well-produced, nice photo, great, great video, great photo, whatever, that had been done 1,000 times, and it's not working anymore.
Yeah.
But now more authentic stuff's going. Well, now we're in a world where that's what everybody's creating. It's the more authentic UGC, day in the life, that content, like a lot more people are creating that.
Yeah.
What do you think is the importance? Because in my mind, I don't see this going back to, okay, now we're going to go back to professional. Sure. We're going to stay at this more genuine route. How do you keep that from feeling or looking like what's been done 1,000 times?
The answer is the story you're telling, 100%. And you can do it, like, stories, like, I can be so wildly engaged in the story that is produced, a $5,000 video versus somebody who produced it on their iPhone in CapCut. using a trending audio. Like, so I think you're right. I actually think that we're starting to, I actually think we're going to start to see overly produced stuff come back so that it makes things stand out a little bit different. But I don't think that means that the iPhone-y, looks like I filmed it in my basement. I don't think it's ever going away. I do think you're going to see more professional stuff start to come back. It already is. But what's happening now is the people that stand out the most are the people who are just telling a good, genuine story. And that's like that, and that'll never end. Because stories like, biblical times, whatever, it's like that's all that is. The most popular book in the entire world is probably the Bible, I'm guessing, because whether you believe it or not, it is the most popular book. Everyone knows it, right? Yeah. Or knows of it. And that is all it is stories, And so stories are flawless. They will never go out of style. You will always win. So when you're creating content, like that's the hack. Figure out how to tell the right story.
I'm so glad you said that. That is something that we preach to the end of the day. Like, you can have a crazy well-produced video, or you can have, a $5 produced video, but it's the story and the form of entertainment that people are getting out of it that is going to, reign supreme. Totally. And I actually heard something the other day that really stood out to me, and maybe it was just because it was phrased in a different way, but across the board, especially on social, if you're a brand or an individual, you have to be a resource or an entertainer. Sure. And to me, I don't know why it changed my perspective, because everybody's like, yeah, you need to have educational content, you need to have that, this and that. But like, yeah, that's the reason I get on social media, is to inform myself or to learn or to simply be entertained. Totally. And I think there's this cool shift in like almost series type content that you can get on, and it's reoccurring. It's almost like watching mini TV series on your phone. Yeah, for sure. So I like that you explained it that way.
Yeah.
I'm mostly on social to watch dudes fall off their bike. That's the content that my algorithms hit me with. Entertainment. Yeah. That's it right there.
The entertainer, dude.
Well, yeah, to wrap up, I just want you to kind of explain what the next 2 to 5 to maybe 10 years looks like for you.
30 years if you could. Yeah, just...
Yeah. Maybe touch a little bit about Bestie AI too, because I thought that was a really cool venture you're working on.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we've done has evolved, and so we have a marketing agency, and then we have a software, and they're very parallel to each other. I think at the end of the day, where we're going is we are building tools and systems in place to help e-commerce brands grow. And that's not really changing. What we're trying to do is we're trying to commoditize some of those, like what we have with Bestie AI. Bestie AI is it's a software tool that we use that brands use to survey their customers, ask them questions in times that they're most vulnerable to answer those questions. And we take that data and we use that to better understand the customer, talk to the customer the right way, use the right language, whatever it might be, market to them correctly, advertise to them in the right channels, whatever, and those are all things that help e-commerce businesses grow. And so we're really passionate about e-commerce is a really scary game right now. I don't know if you guys saw I need to read a little more on it, so I can't speak a whole ton to it, but have you guys heard about the McDonald's earnings index that happened? Like they've missed their earning calls for the last couple of quarters.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why that's important is because McDonald's oftentimes dictates where the market is going, because it's the cheapest of the food. Mm-hmm. And if McDonald's is missing earning calls, then that means people aren't spending money in one of the easiest places to spend money.
Wow.
Right?
I mean, as we're sitting here, the stock market is
exactly
down hundreds of points.
Yep. So e-commerce brands have it really hard right now. Like it's really, really hard to succeed as an e-commerce company. And so we're really passionate about trying to help brands find the right way to do that. So that's really where we're headed, and it's what we're doing now, and we're trying to just get better at that over the next few years. So,
well, that's awesome. Well, we would highly recommend, anybody who's looking to do that, reach out to our boy and talk to him, and then But don't keep him too busy because we do need to save time for golf. So
yes,
make sure you don't not everybody run at once. We'll talk on the course. Yeah, there we go.
We can
Great.
talk on the course.
But yeah, man, let's start a tee time soon. And we're glad we can have you.
Appreciate it, boys. Thank you so much for having me.